what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on it to show you how much stronger it is now. Well, spring is springy, and my thoughts are turning to lawn and garden projects. And one of those is fixing this broken garden trellis, which has been laying around the yard for too long now. We paid good money for it, and then it fell apart, which is really disappointing. But I'm going to fix it and put it back to good use. And I'm going to show you how I do it. My name is James, and this is Homestyle Woodcrafts. So real quick, I just wanted to show you how it was put together when I bought it in the store. Is that all they did was staple it together, and these just didn't hold up. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. First of all, there's a lot of dirt on these pieces because I've been leaving it in the dirt for a long time. So I'm just going to sweep that off. And then I'm going to remove all these staples, get them out of the way. Then I'm going to fit it together, kind of like a dry fit, and mark where all the pieces go. And then I'm going to cut some cross lap joints with my router, and I'll go into that more later. And then I'm going to glue it together and then pin the joints together to hold them while the glue is drying. That should result in a pretty strong garden trellis. So stay tuned. I disassembled the whole thing and removed all the staples. And then I took these two main legs and I set them parallel to each other, and I spaced them with these squares that I have, because I wanted them equal as best I could all the way up and down, because they've started to bow a little bit. Then I set my top and bottom pieces where I want them, and then I will equally space each one of these crossbars in between them. And then I'm going to center them on the two legs. Once they're centered, I'm going to mark them where I want to route out the cross lap joint. And once I've done that, I'm going to take these two pieces, which are the wing pieces, and in the final product, they're going to have a little flare to them, and I will mark them as well. Once everything's marked, I will be able to then route out the cross lap joints. In order to come up with the average distance between each cross member, I first measured the total distance from the top cross member to the bottom cross member. Then I put all the other cross members together and measured their total width. I subtracted that width from the total top to bottom distance, which gives me the total amount of space I had to work with. And then I divided that total amount of space by the number of spaces between the cross members, and that ended up giving me the average space between cross members. When I placed the cross members, I didn't worry about being overly exact. It was pretty simple to center the cross members across the two legs. All I did was measure the overhang on each side and make sure they were equal. And so in other words, if the right side overhang was equal to the left side overhang, the cross member was centered across both legs. The next step was to square up the cross members in relation to the legs, and then to make all the markings necessary to route out the cross lap joints. But before I can start routing out the joints, I've got to pull it all apart. To avoid having to route out each individual piece, I clamp them together for efficiency. I used the combination square to mark the depth of the cut. I used a 1/2 inch straight bit on my trusty old Ryobi router. Okay, finally getting started. It's very satisfying to see the sawdust fly out of a router, in my opinion. I did make a mistake in not using a edge guide of some kind to keep my cuts straight. They did okay, but they weren't great. If you haven't used a cross lap joint before, It's like a half lap joint, except instead of being at the end of the workpiece, it is in the middle of the workpiece, and the two pieces fit over each other in a cross-like fashion. A quick note about the video itself. I've sped up the video in a number of segments so it's not so long and boring. Okay, now I've cut all the cross-lap joints in the individual pieces, and now the next step is to dry fit it together to see if it worked out. I can tell you that hand routing the grooves was a challenge, and I wasn't that good at it. But that's enough work for tonight. When I film again, I will show you the dry fit, and I will tell you about a big mistake I made. The dry fit turned out to be more challenging than I anticipated because several of the pieces of wood were warped and the inconsistencies in the cuts that I made. So real quick, I just wanted to show you how tight or not my joints ended up. Some of them are okay. Some of them are pretty loose. We'll see how it works out. So here I'm starting the glue up. This is Titebond 3, which is good for outdoor use. And I am applying glue at each joint and brushing it so that there's good even coverage. And this is a close-up of the same process. When I brush the glue into the joints, I really try to get coverage on all sides of the cross lap joint. I'm going to use 1-inch 18-gauge nails to secure the joints while the glue dries. And you saw that I was using safety glasses and hearing protection while I do this. I feel like it's important to always use the appropriate safety gear. All right, here it is, all pinned and glued up, and it's feeling pretty good. Feeling better than it used to before it all fell apart even. But here's the big mistake I made. I had two wing pieces going up diagonally here, and I forgot all about them. Here they are. So they haven't been routed or anything. So I've been debating whether or not to add them, and I think I'm going to try, even though it's a lot of extra work at this point. So I'm going to go through all the same steps, so I'm not going to necessarily show that on camera, but I'm going to do all that, and I will be back. All right, here it is. Added the wing pieces, and looks pretty good. Some of the big challenges of this project were the wood was old and dry, and sometimes as I was using the router, it would just big pieces would just splinter off. And also it was warped. These wings, this one's warped pretty badly, and that made it difficult. Honestly, I think I just would have been better off if I had bought new wood and made one from scratch as opposed to trying to redo this one. But having said that, I think this one's a lot stronger now than it was before because of the cross lap joints. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand on it to show you how much stronger it is now. Okay, maybe not that. That would not be a good idea. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you. If you thought this was good, check out this video. I think you're going to really like it. Thanks for stopping in.